Is this thing on? This thing on? Cool. Welcome everybody to the Lost Beat 6 show. This is your host, Steven. I'm glad you're here. Make sure you're doing all the things you're supposed to do with this podcast. You're liking, you're subscribing, you're doing all that stuff. Be sure to visit lostbeat6.com for more information on us and to check out the artists that we have and the stuff that we're doing. I know this is, I'm talking, I feel like I'm talking a mile in a minute here based on my usual rate. But anyway, we're here, we're back again with another show of Making the Scene. We might take a break next week to detour for a minute there, but this week we're still continuing our long, methodical deep dive exploration and celebration of the PLaNETS Collective from Los Angeles, California. We'll be talking with Mr. Ethan Walden, who is a member of the group Mars And The Massacre. I'll have a link in the show notes so you can all check out what they were doing and they're still doing. And we're getting another outside perspective from the PLaNETS crew. Not really from the outside on the terms of like me being an outsider, but more of like the outer orbit of the PLaNETS crew, which is a better word for it. And this I don't know, Adam and Nate and all you guys. Shout out to you guys for making these puns so easy to work with. So anyway, on the housekeeping end, I want to thank everybody for checking out our Bandcamp page and and checking what we're doing out there. We had a couple singles that we'll probably release in streaming, available later, but for the most part, that was awesome that people dropped by and said hi. One more thing is that we do have an album to release from the group Big Die, which is Kentucky Clausen, Jim Nelson, Anthony Pelosi, and Johnson, Johnny Walker. We have their album. It's going to be coming out on March 5th, which is, if you didn't know, that was also Bandcamp Friday, so you can check that out. And there'll be a pre-save link also attached to this show notes, so you can check out with the Spotify thing. You can, if you're a Spotify user, which I think most people are. If you're not that, you're an Apple user most of the time. Not gonna, or Amazon or whatever. You can pre-save on Spotify, so it's like a set it and forget it. And like by the time May 5th approaches, you're like, cool, I got a song I can listen to, and it hits the hits the algorithm the right way. So anyway, please check that out. You'll also be able to do that from our website. There'll be a link on, basically, if you didn't know this, on our website you'll see all our releases up on the top of the screen. It's like a scrolling gallery style thing. You click this, once you click on the picture, and it'll send you to means to listen to the record. So when you click on the Hornets, there's like a thing of ground hornets in a hole. That's what the album's going to look like. You'll be able to pre-save. You just click that button. So yeah, I might make some changes to make that a little more obvious. So, but anyway, we're gonna be we're gonna hit back to the show and talk to Ethan. And it was a fun show to talk to Ethan, mainly because he kind of turned the tables on me, and he was very interested in stuff I was doing, which is, I don't know why anybody cares, but I mean, you're still listening, I suppose, so maybe you do. Anyway, the point being is he got to turn the tables on me and get to know a little bit more about stuff I was doing at the beginning of the decade. So that's kind of fun. But most of the time it was really fun to talk about Hollywood music scene as it was or used to be, and on top of contrasting that with the PLaNETS crew, which was like much more preferred to like a pay-to-play structure. So it was a good time. I think you'll enjoy the show, and let's get started. All right, thanks for making the scene, man. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Woo!
So I think we'll just start off right away, and we'll just talk about we'll talk about Mars and the Massacre a little bit,
for sure,
and how that kind of grew into or melded into the world that became PLaNETS. I keep saying that like it's a strange, like the world of planets.
Oh, dude, it kind of
it's sort of a strange sort of a oxymoron or paradox of multiplicity
right.
or the universe of planets.
Yeah, the Big Bang.
The expanded universe. Yeah. How'd you find yourself in this predicament here?
For sure, man. So yeah, it's funny because sorry, I don't want to bore everyone with like my whole backstory, but
I'm interested.
Overview of it was I moved to Los Angeles about 10 years ago, 2010, with a pop band. Funny enough, and that band was called The Working Hour, and so me and these guys moved out here, Peter, John, and Andy, and we just like we're playing shows, doing that whole thing, but we were like playing mostly like, Viper Room and like things in like the Sunset Strip, and it just was not. It wasn't what I know LA to be now. So that quickly kind of faded. We all got kind of sick. First of all, playing pop music, we kind of wanted to do what we wanted to be doing, which was grunge and psychedelic and just experimenting with different stuff. So one of the guys left, the lead singer and the principal songwriter. So me and the other guys, Peter and John, formed Mars And The Massacre, which you mentioned. And so Mars And The Massacre just kind of like started playing, and then we kind of found the East Side, right? And everyone who knows anything about LA local scenes and music knows that the East Side is kind of where it's at least, where I'm concerned. And so, we just played and played and played. And the greatest advice I ever got was, just start going to shows too. And so we were going to shows, I'm not joking, like 2, 3, 4 times a week. Silver Lake Lounge, Satellite, rest in peace, and all these places. And then that's where we kind of, I want to say we met Jo Lynn. I don't know if you've interviewed her yet, but
I know Jo. Yeah. We'll be talking to her.
And I don't know how we met her, to be honest, but it was like very early on. Like very early on. I don't even think we had recordings yet or anything. We were just playing shows. And she just introduced us to people and was like, hey, what about this? You should play with this band. She was booking shows and stuff. And so finally, through fate or whatever, and maybe just because our names were similar, outer space stuff, but like we got booked with PLaNETS and we just were floored, We were like, that's what we wanted our shows to be. We wanted the theatrics, we wanted the ruckus kind of, just kind of craziness, not just the music. We wanted people to like really experience a show. And so we really like latched onto them and like went to all their shows. And though they only had, very few, I feel like I've seen them like hundreds of times, but really in actuality, I've probably seen them maybe 5 times, including the shows I played with them. But so
I'm going to blame that on Father Time, by the way.
Oh, for sure, dude. He was always just kind of holding them back in the world. Father Time is the best, but yeah, man, that's really like how it was. It's funny because I also, just in my personal life and just to kind of tote my own stuff here a little bit, I'm a big horror fanatic and always wanted to like do horror films, and finally got to do one with that crew. And I remember one of the first times I met Stilly was outside the Silver Lake Lounge. It was after, I think, maybe the show we played together, or maybe it was just one of their shows. And seeing him outside and knowing a little bit about, because, I did research. We all wanted to know who everyone was, like, in this scene that we were playing in and, like, all this stuff. So I remember, like, realizing or hearing or figuring out somehow that he was also into directing horror movies. And so, of course, just being, like, kind of nosy and whatever, I hit him up after the show and was like, dude, I need to get involved in something horror. Like, that's my jam. That's what I want to do. And, Silly, like, he's just like the nicest, most supportive human in the world. Instead of saying like, who the hell are you? Get out of my face. He was like, yeah, of course. Just stick around and you will. And sure enough, it happened, And that's just kind of who he is, and who, you know, all of them are. Cotton, Nathaniel, you know, Alan, Tashi, like, you know, everyone that was involved, Nick. And so it's just funny because that's what I did, and that's kind of what Mars did too. Is we just like stuck around and picked their brains, and you know, and always begged to play shows with them. You know, if Mars had like a residency or something like that, we'd always be like, can you guys please play, or you know, let's figure out something to do, and then. You know, from there, sorry, I'm kind of just talking and rambling.
No, it's just great.
This is what I do. Anyone that knows me, it's like, oh God, shut up. But
better you than me, man.
No. But yeah, you know, like that's just how it happened. Like it was just going to shows and playing, and finally, I don't know what the like, kind of the turning point was where it went from, you know, somebody that's also in the same scene you're playing in and like a family thing, but it just happened. It was the sticking around part. It was, we were going over for parties, you know, at their old house in Alhambra. And after that, it was like, you know, just calling up and hanging out. And then it was, hey, I'm working on this project, you know, can you help? Or what, you know, do you want to be a part of it? And that's just kind of what it was. And then that's really how all of that stuff is. Like you mentioned, like we were talking about before the show, like, you know, Jeff Miller and the Smad Brothers and all of them. It was all kind of that. Like we were all the ones at the Alhambra house, like hanging out with the PLaNETS guys. And that's how we did cool things like, you know, the Nirvana show that we did that was awesome. And like the Pink Floyd shows that we did, and like, and the Father Time Christmas specials and things like that. It was just always everything we did was big. Even if there was no audience there at all, even if like no one came, we would still do it that big. And that's just something that I think is, you know, you can't really replicate that. Like it's just you have to have that passion, and if you don't have that passion, you're not going to make it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And this is something that's sort of close to me is I know exactly when you mentioned when you first came into town and you had all those pay to plays, and that was I think one of my groups was I did that around 2011. Mm-hmm. And that time, and it was so draining. Oh, mainly for a couple, you know, it's just to get your friends to show, because we're all from Ventura, so to get people to all come all the way down to, you know, when you can't drink, right? And you can't kind of, you know, it feels very kind of, you know, they shove you on, they shove you off, and it's like they don't care, right?
It's just super impersonal. Sorry, finish your question. Sorry.
No, yeah, it's okay. It was more, was that ever, I mean, like, and then you contrast that with your Silver Lake experiences. Mm-hmm. Was there obviously you guys sort of course corrected
right.
Sonically, but how bad, or I don't want to say how bad was how much of a bummer was that, and all of a sudden how the gear shift to the PLaNETS people, like, what kind of contrast was that?
Well, it was funny because, like, it's like you're saying, like, it wasn't bad. Like, I don't want to ever hate on anyone that was doing that, because, like, most of the people I know did do that at some point, and it's just kind of like learning your way around. And I don't want to hate on the people that, like, the promoters and stuff that have to book that stuff, because I'm sure that's hard.
Kind.
Yeah, sure it's hard, and I'm sure it sucks to, like, have to make bands pay, you know. But it, you know, it's just a vibe that, like, you know, you learn real quickly, and when you're there, it's not about passion, or it's not about love for music. It's about turning a profit, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that, I guess. I mean, there is in my eyes, but, you know, when it comes to making music, and I think what we kind of learned after we stopped doing the pop music, and that first band kind of broke up, and we kind of stopped trying to do the that Sunset Strip kind of scene, was when we showed up in Silver Lake, and we showed up in Echo Park, and we showed up, you know, now Highland Park. When we showed up at those places, it just, you know, there was free shows on Monday nights. There was free shows on Tuesday nights. Right, yeah. They were packed out. People wanted to come out and see music. There wasn't a lack of passion for it. But when you're saying, hey, come see me for $10, like, it just felt more like a transaction rather than like a love for something. And then it just, like, you know, I don't want to, like, hate on anyone that does that stuff, because I do think I'm sure people have success doing it, maybe. But yeah, I just don't think there's anything really personal about that. It feels like, here, come see me play. It's this much money. I have to pay this for the venue, blah, blah, blah. And then it just kind of, that's where the relationship ends. Whereas what we kind of experienced when we were playing all those shows, and I mean, I haven't played Silver Lake Lounge in like years, but you know, that's where it all kind of started. And that place is tiny, you know, and some nights it'd be packed out, some nights it wouldn't, but there still was like a mutual like respect for being there, a mutual love for being there. You know, I always loved being there. Like, even if I was playing drums up there and it was just my girlfriend in the crowd, I'd be like, well, at least it was a fun night. You know what I mean? I didn't really care at the time. And don't get me wrong, I want people to be at the shows, but there's just different feeling, you know. And funny enough, people kind of caught on to that. I think venues caught on to that. I think you'd probably see more of a profit when it came to like harboring good music and good vibes rather than, you know, exploiting bands. But I don't know. What do I know?
Yeah, I think the former, you know, Whiskey A Go Go experience is more for me. I sort of equate that to a smaller dosage of like a rock and roll fantasy band camp.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like where you're like, oh, we're on this. You know, the legend is there, and you're paying as a grown adult, or oftentimes I always see this as like a if you're like a insurance salesman or stockbroker, you really wanted to like make sure you you made your living, but you always had music as a hobby, because music as a hobby is still great. I think totally. There's a strange I think a lot of people like myself have a hard time like seeing music as a hobby, but like it is a hobby for a lot of people, and they don't, you know, there's a skill level that they are comfortable with and stuff like that. Right. But then when you get to a place where you can kind of treat your family or treat your office staff to like a small little gig, and it's, you know, it's sort of fun for everybody, and it's not the ambition level, it's sort of the your satisfaction is based on like your ambition, the ambition of it. So it kind of, you know, works out in that. So I could totally see that working out for people in that regard. Totally, and that's a good way to look at it, because I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It's just the way we were playing and the way that we still want to play, and sure, it didn't make sense for us. But yeah, it's funny because there's also like something just kind of cool about playing at the Viper Room or playing at Roxy and like being like, I played there. Like that's in movies, you know. That's like the 60s and 70s, like cool, you know. But I was gonna say, do you know what's kind of funny is I've been to a lot of those places. I've still never been to the Whiskey, and I actually want to go, you know, at some point. I actually think it's one of the better sounding places of those venues. Yeah, they seem to, you know, I haven't been there like in eight years, I think. Right. So it's been like, you know, part of it was sort of a good riddance, but also it was sort of I don't regret the shows being played there, played there, but like, you know, it was because it was a lot of fun. And the first show was like, oh my God, Jim Morrison, like exactly so much cool stuff here, and you know, the second point you're like, okay, cool, let's just like, you know. Anyway, it's actually a cool place. Yeah, I want to go. Yeah, and just I even want to like go and like see something like classic there, like, you know, I don't know, all those like cover bands that play there that are like very specific, you know, right? Like White Snake or something, you know, or whatever it is. I'm sure they have if you actually talk to the people, they could probably arrange some sort of 4-wall deal, you know, if they made that work. Yeah. As long as they have their staff got paid, and, you know, then you can do your promotion, you know, if you had your own promotion company, you could probably pull something off like that. I know they do a lot of like sort of legacy shows that are kind of cool. I think Robbie Krieger did a couple shows. Yeah. And like sort of Doors reunions, or Chris or Roger did like Bird reunion. There was those sort of a big like 60s classic Excuse me.
Which is cool.
Yeah, it's a cool thing to do. It's still like I had in high school I had this fascination of Laurel Canyon because I kind of knew a few people that were sort of not personally, but I kind of knew of it was I romanticized that Laurel Canyon scene for a little while, like kind of like the idea of kind of like the Alhambra house where people just showed up and started playing in each other's houses. It was kind of cool, right?
That's so cool.
That's kind of why, obviously that you can see why I'm interested in this, but that idea that you could walk down onto Sunset Boulevard from your house is kind of a cool idea. And then I actually having to drive through the canyons in like modern day, like it was like a pain in the ass.
It's funny that you said walk to the strip from there. I'm sure people do it, but it always makes me nervous. Every time I'm driving up there, I'm like,
oh yeah,
I ain't walking down here, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like even to go to the country store is like,
yeah, you
have to make sure you're on the right side of the road because it's a pain in the ass left turn. It's such a
it's a country store that's like I'm trying to think of. It's like before you like kind of make it up the mountain. It's like
it's sort of I think it's on Lookout Mountain, that intersection.
Yeah, it's funny because I take my dog. I always pass by because I always take my dog to that dog park. That's like you follow that all the way up. It's like at the intersection of Laurel and
Mulholland is the top.
Mulholland and Laurel.
Okay, yeah. It's a crazy road, and I've lost. I think I've grown. I think I got over that sort of romanticizing of that part of town. Although, I mean, I don't. You said you live in Hollywood, so I don't want to I don't want to be ripping on anything you.
Oh, dude, no, I don't care. But okay. I do have a funny story about that. It's so me and those two other guys that moved here with the pop band and then started Mars. So Peter and John, we moved to this little house in Hollywood, and it was. Whatever. I lived there for 2 years and they lived there for 3 years, I think. But this had been in 2010. And so we lived in here. It's like Cahuenga, close to Cahuenga and that Cahuenga strip kind of. And so, yeah, we had a blast. And then right after I moved out and they were about to move out, we threw a huge party there. Like, I mean, a huge party. The cops came, everything. But we did a show and then Mars played, The Absolute played, which I don't know if you know them, but The Absolute played, and then this band called The Space Race, which then became The Crazy Brave, played.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, Bert and them, yeah. And so we had them. We didn't even know those guys really. I remember we got them through Joe, and we threw this big party because they were the two bandmates were moving out, and so we like spray painted the walls and stuff. It was like kind of a madhouse. Like it was very much like. We were early 20s and like didn't really care. Literally, I can't remember if it was that day, but like lit a guitar on fire and smashed it on the sidewalk in the middle of the day. It was like very, very. We thought we were very cool. I actually still think it's cool, but whatever. But we threw this big ass party, right? And I guess that's the end of that part. But the funny part is, I moved out, lived somewhere else for 8 years. And now, as we speak, I live in that house again.
Nice.
Isn't that crazy? I literally moved, I saw it was back for rent, and I was like, I gotta move back there. But so, reliving my my beginning band days in LA.
Is it strangely nostalgic, or is it kind of?
It is nostalgic, but like it looks like after we destroyed it, it like looks completely different. You know.
Okay.
Now I live here, with my fiance, and then it's like the room that I'm in that used to be my room with an air mattress on the floor is now like my office.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's definitely, and I don't want to I still wish I lived the punk rock lifestyle, but no, I have an office.
Okay. No, that's more good on you.
Yeah.
Should always have like a sort of a torch, scorched like part of the wall or something to keep
for
just
sure.
a little edgy.
Like I have all that spray paint still up on the walls, but I just put artwork over it.
Right. Facebook it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get some David Cho sort of stuff going.
Yeah.
Going back on the PLaNETS life. What do you think? Why do you think that group? I'm sort of asking people a lot of the similar questions. Why do you think everybody gravitated towards each other so well?
Yeah, I can. First of all, you said gravitated towards, which is just funny.
It's all subconscious, man.
Yeah, it works. I love it. But I know exactly what it was, and it was exactly what drew us in to them, and what I think brought in not only bands and creators, but also fans. Was the inclusivity.
Yeah.
But it was just such a freeing. Going to one of their shows was so freeing. You've been to a million shows. You've played a million shows. I same here, and I know when a band, whether it's my band or I'm watching a band, can like really move an audience. There's been times I've played shows and I've been like, we do not have this audience. Like we don't have enough energy. We're just not doing it. PLaNETS never had that problem because they brought that kind of, and it wasn't just about audience participation, but brought like we're all in this together kind of energy every time they played. And I mean, it did help with that they did a lot of audience participation stuff, but not like in an uncomfortable way. Like how it's so awkward when you like go to a show and they're like, "No, everyone, raise your hands in the air," and you're like, "I don't want to fucking raise my hand." I'm not gonna do.
I am totally that guy in the back who says, "Fuck off."
I'm not. Yeah, I don't want to be doing that. Like I'll do it on my own accord.
Right.
But you never felt that way at their shows, and it was just like. It was one of those things where like, even if you didn't love their music, which I do, it's dark and it's sinister and it's cool. But even if you didn't love their music, you went because it was a show. It was a fully immersive show where, if you didn't like the music, you watched the puppet show that they did on the side, or you watched the choreography because they had dancers, and you would. And it just that's how it felt. And then if you didn't care about any of that stuff, at the very least, it was a party. At the very end of the show, it was always throwing confetti up in the air. And I don't mean like, here's a bag of confetti. I mean like pounds of confetti and like ripping up literal, probably not great for the environment, but ripping up literal, or for, media or whatever, but ripping up literal books and like, throwing pages of the books in the air, and like it just felt very it felt kind of like a revolution, like in a very dramatic way to put it, but it just felt very freeing, and like we were doing something important and cool, and we were having fun doing it. And that's how I felt. I remember seeing them at Satellite, and I still only sort of knew them, and just being like, God, like that's just such a show. Like if people that don't see that show, you're like, you kind of feel bad. You're like, yeah, you've seen great bands, but have you seen like a theatrical performance on stage? It's just wild.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just start rambling, and now I'm reminiscing, which is not good. But
I mean, I was sort of asking you to, so.
But just even like I think also the detail. Was really fun because every time you go to the show, even if they played the same songs, you knew the songs or whatever, there was always something different. There was always a different gimmick. There was always a different, costume or whatever, and of course they are like the epitome of like, what would you call it? Like, crafty, but like the word, like, they just made all their own stuff, right? Like
DIY.
Like they are the epitome of like DIY. Like literally made a robot costume.
Yeah,
it's wild. Like it's just so much stuff that like it just shows their creativity and shows how anyone can really do it. If you have the passion and the willpower. But yeah. I don't want to feel like I don't want to sound like I'm gushing either. If
it's, it's I really do appreciate it because it's hard not to get romantic about these sort of things, especially if it's something that you felt you were a part of.
Oh, for sure.
And they accepted you into it, which is,
yep.
Even from me on an outside end, and the people there's not been a single soul who's been difficult to deal with in any of this.
Yeah.
everybody I've reached out to has been like, hell yeah, we want to talk about this. Like, and so, and it's and even if I haven't responded, even those who haven't responded yet, it's just a matter of just following up. I don't think it's like them not wanting to talk.
People love to talk about it, especially not that we wouldn't want to talk about it if we were doing stuff, but like now that we're not doing stuff, it's like like I said when we were talking earlier, I'm just like you reaching out and talking about this and bringing this up again and stuff like that. It just like it sparked a fire. Like, oh shit, yeah, we used to do this stuff. Like we got to keep doing this stuff because that's like. First of all, it's fun and it's kind of like in my blood, I feel like, but also like I just feel like it's important, you know, I feel like it's important to stay creative and inspire. Like, again, all these sound bites are cheesy, but I think there was kind of a level of like love, cheesiness, love in that community.
It's cheesy, but it's not disingenuous, and that's one of the things that I noticed when I went to the 2016 Father Time's Christmas special is that I tend to have a sort of cynical music edge, and maybe from like me being a sound guy and dealing with a lot of you know, cover bands, dad rock bands, you know, just sort of like a more and I'm not going to say artificial because there's a magic there too, but I don't connect with it. Yeah, and going to that show and having everybody like, you know, like, and not that I wanted to be an eye roller kind of whatever, but I'm like, no, everybody like, you know, you play there's certain songs like I may not care for or I didn't think people were into, like for example. Just to finish before I use that example, just the idea that everybody's just singing along and it was like, wow, this is an open, and that the end of 2016 was rather tumultuous as we all recall. Right. I mean, it'll be hard to top this one, but like, yeah. But the idea of, I think what happened, I think part of it was that, you know, that fire in Oakland that art house, that sort of collective art house burned down and all these kids just died in it. Oh God, yeah. Like, do you remember that at all?
I vaguely remember it. Yes.
I feel like I'm tarnishing the memory, but even just saying those kids and that thing. But basically, there was some like, you know, probably should be, you know, some like would have been condemned building, right? And you know, these guys, these sort of these art hipster art people, sort of artsy kind of groups, similar to like PLaNETS in a different universe. It could have been them, yeah. And that sort of, you know, everybody's sort of huddling together, and they're all being, you know, beyond suffocating and dying, and it was sort of heavy on me because those people were all there to have a good time. Like, oh yeah, it always hurts me when there's like someone's going to a show, even like the shootings in Vegas and in the borderline, and you know, you're all there to have a good time, and someone comes and fucks that up. Yep. Or something happens and you lose your, you know, you went to have a good time and you end up like losing your life over it. Yeah. And that really was like, that just happened like a couple days before I went to that show. So I was almost crying at the kind of beautifulness of like this whole experience, and like a bunch of other things that happened in 2016 beyond like the larger political nature. But like,
I didn't know that happened so close to that show.
Yeah, it sort of sparks in me that, and so that sort of, wow, this is what I wanted to, this is something I would want to have, right? Really kind of like launched in, and then I think it just, the way that show built and went on, and I think I was telling Nathaniel this, I think because you guys were playing Jump Into the Fire, and I think you were playing bass on it.
I was definitely, I probably think I was, yeah.
Which is a freaking cool groove, so that's kind of how I remember it. Yeah. And I'm just going, this is awesome. This is like,
oh, dude, yeah.
I don't know any of these people, but I found a home, right?
Yeah, it's completely cathartic, and it's like you said, it's just so genuine, you know. Wait, I do have to ask, because I'm so bad with years, and we did that Christmas show like I think 4 years in a row or whatever.
I missed the second year. Yeah.
Okay. It wasn't the year that we played Feliz Navidad for 20 minutes, was it?
It wasn't. I wish it was. What I was working on, That was such a funny thing. I remember it was being 2016 because 2017 I was working on an album with David Sparrow.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I know. I
And
love him.
he and I were in the studio, and I'm like, oh, I got to make sure I go to this thing, and it's happening like that night, and I'm like, fuck, I missed it. And I was really bummed out because we're like, I was, I mean, like, being in the studio is where I want to be. I'm, producing, making records is like, the all time. It's up there. I'm starting to realize live shows might be up there too now, but the ultimate goal for me was to be making records, and to that was my first producing gig, so it was kind of a big deal that I got that done.
Of course.
And and David's awesome, and his songs were always great. So
yeah, for sure.
And I'm sure he would have wanted to go too. So
I've definitely played shows with David before.
Yeah, it was with the was it with Burning Jet Black or
Burning Jet Black. I mean, it was years ago, but yeah.
So anyway, that was I missed out on the 20-minute Feliz Navidad.
It's all good. It was probably just funny to us. I don't know, but
that's the cool part. That's what makes it cool.
I remember like we sort of joked about it. I remember we were actually practicing in what is now the new Alhambra house, and it was me and Jeff and Leon and Peter and Silly Nathaniel and the Smith brothers there. I can't remember who all was there, but we were all just practicing it. And I remember like I can get real annoying real fast, and I remember like I kept playing it like. Or somebody kept playing it, and then like I started playing it over and over again, and then somebody else would start playing it over again. And then we were all like, what if we just kept playing it the night of the show? And then sure enough, like as soon as somebody would stop playing at the actual show, it would be like somebody would just pick it back up, like exactly like we were doing practice. And it made us die laughing, And it was different styles. We do like a punk version or like a, jazz version or whatever it was, but it was so and funny enough, Casey's is like also rest in peace. It was such an interesting place to always do our big shows at because it was just kind of a back room, like there was right. But it was always funny and fun because then you would always get these like random people walking in, and I'd say more often than not they'd be like, oh God, what is this weird show going on back here? But I remember that one in particular, a huge group of like, I think probably college kids, like probably from USC or whatever.
Maybe,
was like came in and I don't remember if they were laughing or just like drunk or whatever it was. But I remember we were like giving them the mic and stuff like that and like letting them sing the song. And like, it just was such a crazy fun time, but yeah.
that reminds me of like a prank. Musical pranks you play on your own bandmates.
Yeah,
like when no one else is expecting it. We have like one of our quick story, but and this may get cut because it's just about me. But we would have we had our when I was back in my post rock days when we were super serious. We had our bass player who was like really on the avant-garde side of things, and it would get really like almost anal attentive about like things he didn't like. And that's kind of the band we were. It's like more about stuff we didn't like than stuff we did, which is obviously I think I'm learning now, years later, is sort of the wrong attitude. But we would have this our guitar player, I'm the drummer, so
nice.
Our guitar player would start like we learned The Reason by Hoobastank.
Okay, yeah.
And basically we did not tell our bass player we were playing it after this like long Memory Man based tape loop drone he was working on. Yeah. And then he just started going and then started singing it. And then he just got really pissed off, and it was really fun.
I love that.
Yeah.
But what was your band called?
Oh, it was called Mr. Lonely.
Did you guys ever release anything?
Appropriately? Yeah, this is back. This is back. Oh God, it's still available on Bandcamp. If you went to Mr. Lonely and there's a record. The album was called Patagonia. This is actually this is sort of a. If you don't mind, if you'll indulge me on this, we basically, this is about a year ago. Oh, not a year ago. This is the year before that record was made. I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory. My main like musical collaborator, and he's also sometimes a guest host on this show. His name's Eric, and he and I have been playing in bands together for about 10 years, and we still have our own band. The band we have now is called the Psychedelic Space Beef Band. So it's like our house band for Lost Beat 6. So it was just, we do whatever we want. Got it. It's sort of basically a mutual friend of ours kind of talked us into this guy who wanted to write a rock opera based on like a one night stand, like crush one night stand and like inevitable breakup that happened within like a week. And he wanted us to write an entire like hour and a half worth of material in like 2 weeks and have it ready to go for a show at like, I don't know if you know it in Thousand Oaks, like where there, I think it's a medical center, but there used to be like a Borders.
Oh no! But wait, also why wasn't he writing it?
Because he was like musically, not capable.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
I like it was sort of I might get attacked by the. We sort of made a pact that we would never release or talk about it. But
okay,
I'm running kind of a risk here talking to you about it. But you know, I trust you, and and I trust that they're not listening. So anyway, long story short, we write this like it was actually kind of a cool creative burst of like, okay, if we got to write, pull some shit together. And actually, it was so productive we couldn't write a single tune a year later. Like we couldn't like manifest anything that fast. Yeah. And it was weird because like he had these like song titles and structures and like he couldn't really carry a tune. And he had these lyrics, but they would be different every time. And they were also he wasn't really he was sort of tone deaf. And it like there's like everybody has like musicality in them. I think that's sort of a or some sort of artistic capability. I think that's sort of an African philosophy. But anyway, the point was we couldn't play with him during rehearsals because he was so. He would throw us off every time.
For sure.
It's yeah. So we played this one show, and one of our like the cellist guitar player guy ended up filming. His dad ended up filming it. We'd all wear Sunday bests, and we had these like crazy like no FAP rules. Or else we would have to all drop acid, sort of like these crazy rules regarding this strange like act. And anyway, it's a crazy deal. But and the music that came out of that we recorded like the next year in air quotes properly because I was learning my recording engineering skills were like very minimal. We had like an Avid M box, and we basically just kind of cranked through it on like Pro Tools, like one track at a time. And it was actually a rather grueling experience because it was just like we only have 2 mics for the drums, and it was like, wow, recording's kind of a pain in the ass, and not this sort of wonderful sort of experience people have when they're in like a control room headbanging to the stuff they made. It's the opposite. It was just like, this is like
stressful and like, what the hell are we doing? Yeah. I've been
and the musicians ourselves, like I can't say I'm like a very recording proficient drummer, so it's like, oh my god, and the guitar players kept like getting had their own stresses, and it's like I look back on it now, and it's sort of a strange weird situation how we came to talk about this, but looking on it now, it was sort of a kind of a fun. It sort of has that fun. Okay, that didn't work out, but we had some fun in the process. That. So yeah, if you want to check it out, that's called Mr. Lonely. And it's sort of I
look that one up, but definitely send me whatever. I always love listening to people's old stuff.
Yeah, so and I'll actually send you more recent material too, because that's something we're actually trying to like be more.
Oh, sweet! Yeah.
Yeah. That's the Psychedelic Space Beef band. That's got a whole new ethos, which is a little different.
And is it psychedelic?
Yeah, it's got everything. It's got everything. We had this. It's a record called "Beefin' Around the World."
Nice. That is awesome.
Yeah. So that comes from the ethos of like. Well, after we did all that nonsense with Mr. Lonely, that we Eric and I kind of had this sort of, wow, that was dark and depressing. Let's not do that again. Like, let's have this sort of, let's make it. We need to be having more fun.
For sure. Yeah.
That's more comedy based. There's a little more comedy in that, and
totally.
Yeah. So I'll send you stuff, but. I mean, thanks for. I appreciate you being interested, because I'm not. I find it sometimes strange talking about myself as well.
Oh, so. Dude, no, it's awesome. I mean, honestly, like what this like. That's actually funny, because it's kind of a funny segue into what you're already talking about, which is just like that's like what I think also brought everyone together was just like interest. We all like
We
all gave a shit about what everyone was doing. You know what I mean?
I always assume no one cares, and so for me to talk about it is sort of like, oh, wait, do you really want to know about this, or like, okay.
And I don't know if it's just a musician in me or whatever, but I feel like it's always fun to hear, people or people you've met or whatever, like their style or their interpretation. I feel like there's something in it, at the very, very least, is inspiring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the very, very least, I'm sure I'll enjoy as well.
I hope you do. I think I'm not really trying to push it on people, but I would like to. If you're open to listening, I'd be happy to send you stuff. Actually, what I'm kind of interested in is if you could take me into like a basic rehearsal of one of these shows, like especially the ones that are very loose. Like obviously these are the tribute shows or the like special collective shows, because that sounds. I'm always looking at those pictures of people kind of jamming out.
Yeah, totally. I never really. I played like. Yeah, I'll probably talk about like tribute shows, because with the PLaNETS themselves, I don't think I ever really played bass. I've played like their songs before on like compilation nights or something like that, where like you're already playing covers or some shit like that. But I don't think I ever played in one of their shows. But yeah, like the tribute shows we've done. I mean, it's funny because I feel like they've always been so different. I remember. Oh my god, I'm trying to even remember now. I can't even. Oh, for like the Pink Floyd one when we did Dark Side of the Moon all the way through. I remember I was like so nervous because I was like, we have to learn this whole album. It was the first time I'd really done something like that big, and yeah, it's. I don't want to downplay because everyone I played with and work with is so talented, but like it was very much practices were very much parties. Like it was like I remember the first Pink Floyd practice we did with everyone was at that small Alhambra house that they used to live in, and I mean there's videos out of it somewhere, but it's just like. 6 guys shoved in a tiny living room, drinking beers with their amps and their instruments, and that's just kind of what it was. You learned your part and you came and you played it. And if you didn't know it, that was fine. You just had to make sure you learned it for the next thing, We're still going to play through, kind of thing. And that's kind of what it was, if I remember correctly. I mean, again, we were mostly hanging out, talking about the songs and drinking beer. But yeah, I just remember like if I didn't know a song, they might still play through it, but like just the guitars and the drummer doing something or whatever. It was very, very loose. Not to say we didn't work hard. I mean, if when you see the shows, you're like, damn, like not to toot my horn, but like,
oh please,
yeah, damn, those people like really killed it.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and that's how I feel when I'm on stage with everyone. But it's just funny because I think it's just it's all personal motivation and stuff like that. Because when we're all together, we want to hang out and we'll play their stuff and we'll take it seriously and we'll do all that stuff. But like at the end of the day, we want to have fun with each other, and so like you kind of just prepare on your own. It's at least how I've always done things too, and that kind of stays true with every project I've done. For example, like I was telling you about the New Year's Eve show I did with Black Crystal Wolf Kids. And I had a panic attack because I was like, I need to learn 80 songs in the next 2 days. And it's funny because, like, we only did one practice. Again, we only have, like, 1 or 2 days to practice. But we only did one practice, but I just did all that work on my own because it's like, you know, you just kind of put trust in people, I guess, is kind of the takeaway from that, you know. Mm-hmm. And we know everyone so well that it's like if you didn't do your homework and you screw up, like that's gonna look bad on you, not the rest of the people, you know.
Right? Yeah, you don't want to let everybody down.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is like no one wants to. Yeah, everyone wants to make it the best they can, and that was another thing we always like kind of admired about PLaNETS, but also like took on to Mars and the Massacre and stuff like that. Was like I remember Peter, my lead singer. Peter Doherty, he always had this saying that he would always say, like in like when we had to do like band interviews and stuff, and he's like, if you're not killing yourself on stage, then maybe your show's not worth it or something like that. And I always thought it was a little harsh, but like I also kind of understood it because you know if people have seen the Mars and the Massacre show, you'll see like we have a lot of energy, especially Peter, and people that meet Peter outside of our shows will be like, who are you? Like he's very quiet, you know, outside of the stage, but when you see him on stage, he's a madman. Mm-hmm. And so I do think there is something to that too. It's like you put, you know, everyone I know, for the most part, like puts everything they have on the stage, you know?
Yeah.
Which I as much as harsh as I think that can be, I feel like I live by that too. It's like, you know, I could easily sit there and play the bass, you know, standing there or play the drums like without, you know, any expression. But when I'm up there, I get like a specific energy. And there's one of my favorite pictures of Mars the Massacre. And it's of me playing drums, and the guitar player is literally pouring a beer down my throat as I'm in the middle of playing. And that was kind of the vibe. Obviously, it was not every band I want it to be like that because we were a very party heavy band. But I think that kind of energy, it's like it's kind of back to the PLaNETS thing where it's like you're putting on a show for people. They're not sitting home and listening to your record, you know.
Right.
Yeah, you know, you really gotta, and I think that's kind of the point of it is just. You know, if you're going to bring people out to come see you know, give them something to either go home and be like, that was awesome, or at least go home and be like, what the hell did I just see? You know, in like a fun way.
Yeah. How did you figure out which songs to play on? Because I know everybody swapped like a lot.
For Pink Floyd or for which one?
I wasn't actually at the Pink Floyd one, but like, for example, like, say, I was the one I know I was at was, the 1967 5th anniversary and the Father Time Christmas special, 2016.
I completely forgot about the Summer of Love one.
Which is cool, by the way. I thought that was some cool. You know.
That was supposed to be a tribute show as well to, Magical Mystery Tour and the other one,
Sgt. Pepper's.
Sgt. Pepper, yeah, thank you. And then I forget why we changed it, but then we changed it to whatever. To be honest, did I play bass that whole night? No, I think Brandon played a few songs. I can't remember, but I think I can't remember how we usually choose. I do have to say, for some of the shows we did, I get a little greedy. And I remember when we played Nirvana, we played the Nirvana one and we played the Pink Floyd one. I remember reaching out to people and being like, I'll play bass on this song, and this song, and this song, and just adding every single song. And sure enough, I played bass on every single song.
Okay. I've been waiting for some sort of juicy, it's been all love from this point. So
no, and it's funny because we have amazing bass players. Zach played for PLaNETS, and Brandon's played for like 1 million people. We just have so many good, talented people, and I'm sure they would have killed it on any of those sets. I think at that point in my life, every time in that point in my life, I just needed that show for some reason. And
fair enough, man.
Yeah, I mean, you can ask Stilling knows, and he would laugh his ass off because every time we talk about a tribute show, I remember last time we were talking about doing something. I think last year we were supposed to do one of the Pixies albums, and whatever, it got away from us. But I remember hitting up Stilly, and he was dying because I was like, I'm going to play bass on every single track. I already learned them. And he was just like, oh, okay.
That's dope.
So it just kind of goes like that. But I think for the Summer of Love thing, I know Brandon played something on that. And I remember me and him just like, I'd be like, oh, I'll take this one. Do you want to take this one kind of thing? If I remember correctly. I also, it was a while ago, so I don't really remember. But I know it's been like that way for a lot of things. And like for the Christmas shows, I remember like, I'm probably saying information. I'm probably making up stories, to be honest. But for some reason, I remember like an email going out and people being like, I want to do this song. I want to do this song. And, whoever just being like, whoever picks I want to do this song usually just like does whatever they want,
Right.
Because I know for the Christmas shows, we definitely like split up a lot more. Like everyone.
There's so many yeah.
Yeah.
There was so much stuff to do and so much to cover for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so yeah. But that's so funny, dude. I completely forgot about that Summer of Love show.
I was just tickled because I think of myself kind of that's sort of a time period I'm very focused on a lot.
Yeah.
And so I was very tickled that they you guys were actually playing like, oh, we're gonna play Grateful Dead, but it's gonna be like from that record, like from the 67 record they don't even like,
Wait, that's funny. I have no memory at all. But
it was the Golden Road.
Golden Road.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm looking it up right now. Because I remember I played that, and that's actually funny. That's a really big reminder. I remember for some reason I just was holding the bass when we were in the practice space when we were kind of going over songs we wanted to do, and we just played it, and I started playing it even though I didn't know it, and that's how I played that one. Like I just remember that was kind of how it was done too. Like
right.
If you were in the room and you talked about doing a song and you felt like learning it, then you just do it. God, why have I blocked that one out of my memory? I have no recollection. I remember playing the show, but I have no recollection of preparing for the show or anything like that.
What I remember is talking to, I forgot who was there. Maybe Sparrow was there.
Yeah,
and I was hanging out with him for a little bit because I think that was just before. That was actually just before I started working with him to get that record done. And he and I had this idea because I kind of was inspired to do a 67 ballad single. I wanted to have someone cover, and I wanted to sort of Phil Spector it, I wanted to be the producer, but I didn't want to be the player.
Right.
And
right.
I wanted to do Jefferson Airplane's Today. And these are ballady tunes, so they're a little bit more. They're not like.
Yeah, it's like low tempo, yeah.
Yeah, kind of hypnotic to a degree. And the other one was Morning Dew, which was also on that first record. I'm still working on these things. This is sort of developing into a different project, but that ended up I wanted Sparrow to sing. I wanted Zach and maybe Dylan to sing on that Today track. Yeah. And then I wanted Sparrow to sing on Morning Dew. And it still could happen, but anyway, that turned into I'll start working on Backers and Choosers with David, so that ended up happening. That was actually far more productive of an idea that it evolved into. But I remember talking to David about that, and I was sort of in this weird sort of like I think it was Kim, and although I don't think she remembers it, but Kim and David and myself were talking, and I mentioned like, hey, it's 2017. It can't be worse than 2016, and everybody's kind of bumming out that it's 2017, and like we're dealing with the first like Trump year. Yeah. And I'm just like, no, it's great, guys, because it's always hipper to hate the president, right? Yeah. So I didn't know to which degree, because I'm like, yeah, Johnson, Nixon, historically speaking, it's been more counterculture to be against whoever's like the man, right? Yeah. So I didn't know it was that bad. It's sort of, that's before the Charlottesville. It's before like, kids in cages. It's before like all this nonsense and all this like, oh my God, like definitely before January 6th, 2021, all that nonsense. So like, so, naive me being, it's gonna be great, like, and that was, for the most part, like, I can't really, personally speaking, I can't complain about certain, like, I can't speak on the political level, but I've been, like those years weren't too bad. They go really fast. Like it feels like it's been an age, but it's like, oh no, that was 4 years ago. Really? That's what was I doing? Where am I at here? So anyway, that's a whole thing. I know we've been waxing nostalgic for the last hour or so, but I do want to ask about, and we'll close with this, is basically we're all really chomping at the bit rather, and to go out and see each other, and for some of you actually, for maybe actually meeting people face to face with this, because I know I'm talking with you, but it's be kind of like this grand reunion of things. What are you looking forward to the most once we can be set free in a more carefree, cautious but carefree environment?
Dude, I'm looking forward to so many things, but I will say, kind of overall, one, I will say I am currently working with 3 bands, and just one of the bands is like ready to go, Mother Machine. We already played shows last year and all that stuff, and like we have basically a record almost ready to go. And so my thing I'm excited for mostly is just playing, going to shows again, doing all that stuff. That I would say playing with Mother Machine, playing with I've been playing with this band called right now it's just called Jace Ford, and then I don't know if you know like Nicosta, but drummer for that, Shane, and then we were talking about the Crazy Brave Bert and Peter, my old lead singer, or still lead singer. I don't like to say Mars is over because it's not, but the 4 of us actually just got off a long call last night at like midnight. We are currently working on stuff, so excited to get those projects just out there. I'm notoriously way more into live shows than recording. So I just, being on stage again, being around people on stage again, going to see bands again is going to be huge. And then also, sorry, I'm plugging stuff while I'm also telling you what I'm excited.
This is great. I'll make sure we'll talk. I'll make sure it's in the show notes too.
Oh, for sure. But the other thing is, one fun thing that's kind of come out of the PLaNETS family with me personally is, and I sort of mentioned this, but I mentioned probably 8 years ago meeting Stilly outside of Silver Lake Lounge and saying, hey, can I get involved in some of your horror filmmaking thing? Can I hold a boom mic? Can I, do something? And he was like, yep, stick around. And then he helped me produce my first horror short, which was awesome and is doing very, very well. And so that's the other thing I'm really looking forward to is jumping back in, because me and Stilly and a few of our other friends that are into filmmaking and into horror specifically have like a weekly horror night that we do or we're doing before all this. And so I'm very excited to kind of jump back in musically, but also jump back into like kind of these other creative avenues that I work with the PLaNETS guys and also with other people. And yeah, man, I'm just excited. I have a weekly meeting I do with my friend Connor at this bar in Silver Lake called Stella. It's a little hidden little bar, and I don't know if you've been, but it's my favorite place in the world. And we used to go every Sunday and have beers, and I'm excited to do that again. I'm excited to go to the movie theater. Sorry.
Me too, actually.
I'm just talking about everything I'm excited about. But also, it's funny because one of my best friends in the world, I mean, I grew up with him. He just moved to LA after living in New York for 10 years. Just
wow.
LA. When was that? In this summer sometime. And it was just like the worst timing ever. Because, we've barely gotten to see each other. But yeah, so I'm definitely excited to hang out with everyone and shows. I think in the spirit of this podcast and the spirit of what we're talking about, definitely venues opening back up and seeing some live music.
Yeah, it's going to be great to see where the next like hub's going to be. As I know, we don't have the satellite anymore, and I know we don't have. You guys don't have Casey. I'm saying we as if I. But
oh no, Casey, yeah, dude! It is we. It's all of us. We're trying.
True. Yeah.
We're all trying to figure out what the next place is, and I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to speculate because I mean I'm sure there's going to be some great places opening up and all this stuff, but like I'm really holding out for Highland Park stuff. Highland Park was really promising before we had to quarantine. And
that's true. I had not been to the Hi-Hat, so I keep slipping so me. Yeah,
it's funny because it's a huge room, and you wouldn't think it'd be great for like local bands because it's a big space to fill, but it always is like looks great, always super fun. But so yeah, I definitely think Highland Park is like blowing up, but I still want Silver Lake and Echo Park to have their things, and I hopefully the Echo and Echo Bucks haven't closed yet, have they?
Not to my knowledge.
All right, good. Yeah,
they have some bigger promoters and.
Yeah.
To kind of keep them. It's hard though, like because even promoters are in booking agents are having a tough time too. So
yeah. I know. So I still have faith in all that stuff too. But I'm excited to see other stuff pop up too. I'm excited to go back to Zebulon if they are they making it through. I don't know. I feel like every day I feel like I see something that's like now this venue's not making it through, and I'm like, oh come on,
yeah,
help these venues, but
I think in certain places, and from things I've heard, places that I think want, and I don't want to call out like the satellite for wanting to perhaps not be a music venue for a while, but it seems like sometimes if you really, and it's in economic speaking is not always guaranteed, but I feel like certain places that want to keep this going will try their absolutely hardest to stay afloat.
For sure. Yeah.
So. Like I'm hoping the bootleg does well. That for me seems like it'd be a freaking cool place to have a PLaNETS type show where it's you have that Warhol. This is like the third or fourth time I mentioned, but like the Warhol Factory, experience that you could provide if you managed to take the entire venue and then have that. So anyway, there's a lot of creative places to make that happen.
Yeah, it'd be so cool. It'd be so cool.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Frankly, yeah, really appreciate you staying on and hanging out with me, and even like listening to my little my little story. I didn't anticipate that.
I'm excited.
All right, we'll do. Hope to see you soon.
Yeah, for sure, hopefully.